Welcome to Show Me the Money, the money podcast that's more Thanksgiving trifle than tax rebate. I'm Ellie.
And I'm Claire, and each week we discuss how money shows up in some of our favourite pop culture, from the classic to the nostalgic to the contemporary.
And this week we are back with episode 3 of our Friends mini-series, and we're talking all about Monica Geller.
Yes, so from one sibling to another, we are talking about Monica today. And yeah, you said she was your worst friend. And I can definitely see why, especially later seasons. Monica.
Yeah, she obviously has her moments. And then what I would say is that I don't have like a clear-cut worst. I do find it quite difficult to kind of rank them in order of preference.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was put on the spot, which I was, then Monica, like, she has her great moments, as they all do. But on the whole, like, I just don't feel that kind of endeared towards her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think she's a more sympathetic character in the earlier seasons where we kind of see like some of her backstory, you know. Obviously the show does not handle her kind of like transformation particularly well.
Classic 90s.
Yeah, very classic 90s. A lot of fat jokes, a lot of fat phobia. But, you know, she is kind of, I suppose if we try and sort of remove that from it and look at her personality, you know, I think we said in a previous episode, she is very much kind of, she doesn't have the confidence maybe of a woman as beautiful as she is. And she's not necessarily like, I think if you ask people who like the hot friend was, like if you ask the other characters who the hot friend was in the earliest series, they would all say Rachel.
Yeah.
But I mean, Monica, young Courtney Cox, truly like surely one of the most beautiful women on the planet to have ever existed. Yeah, she has some interesting haircuts in those early seasons.
She does, yeah.
She is kind of, you know, really like the linchpin of the whole group in terms of so much of their lives happen in her apartment, you know, with the kind of like really iconic like, purple door that we all really associate with Friends.
And I think we should probably like talk about the apartment like
for sure
up front, because it's one of the key characteristics in, I guess, the financial setting for her as a character, and also, as we mentioned, with Rachel as well. But Monica's apartment is huge. As you said, it's like where most of the activity takes place, so we see them a lot of the time. And it's apparently 1,100 square feet, which is like a pretty sizable space. And the reason that we know that they can afford it is because supposedly it is rent controlled at $200 a month.
Insanity. Insanity. And I guess something that I didn't know until weirdly an episode of Poker Face, where there was like a murder mystery around the inheritance of a rent-controlled apartment, is that they can only be like passed, or you can only like inherit them. So like, for example, when Monica's grandmother had that rent-controlled apartment, she was able to like pass it on to Monica, whereas like I don't think you can do that in, for example, like housing association properties in the UK, but in America there's kind of like a legacy thing with rent-controlled apartments, which is the only reason I suppose really why they still exist now. But yeah, it was like a whole plot where someone was framed for like killing their grandma so that someone else could get the rent-controlled apartment. But it's worked out very well for Monica, and arguably for all of the other friends, because like in Rachel's episode, we were talking about the fact that like having affordable housing gives you like a foothold to set up the rest of your life. But the thing that this really like highlights to me is that having a base where you can just exist without going out and spending money is so like such a gift for like your social life and your relationships, and like just those like moments of joy. Like they all get to spend loads of time together. Obviously Monica and Rachel live together, but they're all always there, and that's a place where they can like come together and exist. Whereas nowadays, like if you're a young person living in a capital city or in a major city, you're probably flat sharing with a few people that you don't really know. You don't have like communal living space.
Yeah, and
so you have to go out.
How do you socialise in that like environment? I was really lucky actually when I first moved to London that I rented a room in a house with 2 other girls who I knew and actually became really good friends. One of them through that, who was the kind of one I didn't know as well. So it did actually turn into being an environment which was a bit more of a like communal space. And then also I lived for a couple of years with one of my closest friends in a 2-bedroom flat. So we did have that, but for so many people, that's not the reality. As you say, so many people are coming into cities and having to just rent a room in a HMO. And a lot of the time they don't even have a living space that they can't use
because
anymore.
It's been converted into a bedroom.
To a bedroom for more rent.
Sure. Or like 3 bedrooms. Yeah.
Or, you just don't have a space where you feel comfortable hosting because it's a shared space with people that you don't necessarily know that well. I mean, I guess the biggest comparison for most people is like if you went to university and you had a shared house there, like how great that is, being able to have that. And if you don't have that option, like you're not only paying a fortune for your room, for your rent, but you have to spend money to go out and socialise. And even if you are in a scenario where you have got a place that is your own or that's shared with friends, they're likely not going to be very big.
No.
So you're not going to be able to have that many people over at once.
I mean, even like our family home has got like 2 rooms downstairs. Basically, we've got like, we're really lucky. We've got a nice, quite like sizable kitchen, enough to fit like a dining table in.
Yeah.
And then a living room. But like we've had like family and friends over, but it's not like a big enough space to, I guess, have everyone round all the time. Like it's not like really set up for sort of hosting or whatever. And we don't have enough seating for like if we invite everybody over. So there's always like a few people on the floor, which is actually fine. And I saw it's like a little bit different from this, but Lauren Bravo recently wrote a piece about like how one of the most generous things that you can do for your friends, specifically like your parent friends, is invite them to your house even when it's messy.
Yes.
And I do think that like inviting people over, maybe I've written about this before as well. I have to go back and check. But I do think that like inviting people over, even if people are going to have to sit on the floor or sit on a kitchen chair or whatever, like I think we need to rediscover that like quite 70s attitude to just like having an open house. But if you're a young person and you don't like have that, then there's nothing else in society, like out in society, that mirrors that either. Like unless you're going to the library, like there's no village square really. Like there's nowhere kind of free that you can go out and congregate and meet people and get to know them and decide you don't like them or decide you do like them. Like it's really depressing.
And like this is like the epitome of like, I guess you say like the village square for their friendship group is this apartment.
Yeah.
If we take away the fantasy of like the rent control, which makes so much of what we see and how they live actually achievable, then for your average person, a 2-bedroom apartment in Greenwich Village, we're looking at like not far off $10,000 a month.
Is that now?
Yeah.
So there's
even
actually
then it would have still been like a lot.
Yeah. And there is actually an article in the New York Times, which we can link in the show notes, which is really interesting, which is, I think it's called something like, could your favourite TV characters afford their homes now or whatever? And it is literally just like going into this, and they use Friends as an example. And kind of the answer is like a resounding no. And it's funny, isn't it? Because like sitcoms tend to not to necessarily exist in this way anymore, where they're set in this environment, because it's just not that realistic. We tend to get more like workplace stuff. I mean, when's the last time there was a new sitcom? I don't know. Someone needs to write one. It's just a world that doesn't necessarily exist anymore.
No, and also we seem to have gone into a world where, like you say, it's either kind of workplace based or there's this real peak of like super rich shows. So people where they live in mansions, but their whole lifestyle also mirrors that as well. Like rather than where with this, we've got like normal jobs, but living in a really expensive area.
Yeah.
It's kind of gone to the extreme.
Schitt's Creek, which we talked about last season, you know, that the motel is kind of their situation that they're in. But that's really like specific. I think you have to be quite creative to write around this like glaring issue in society now. But I mean, Monica kind of, along with being the person who like owns the lease on this apartment hub, she is like really kind of almost like the parent of the group. Like she is always like cooking for them. Her flat is quite often like a haven for like waifs and strays that come along. And I think, you know, that probably has a bit of a financial penalty as well. Like Joey does say in one of the earlier seasons that, it's the one where Monica loses her last like $127 on the stock market.
Yeah.
But she's like, I've made 70, like she's on because she's doing it on the phone because there's no like Internet. Investing app back then. She's like, I've made $17 before breakfast, and Joey's like, well, I had breakfast here, so I've saved like $3.50. And it is a bit like he just comes round, and like Joey and Chandler, when they're in their like real like naughty boy bachelor era, they're always just there like using all of her like heating, all of her eating, all of her food, all of that stuff. So like she is like a provider almost, I think.
And I think as well, like similar to Ross, like she's one of the more stable when it comes to career as well. So she is working, like we see her through different stages in like the cooking industry. So she goes from being like a sous chef through to being a head chef, I think, by the end of the series. And so again, not exactly clear how much she would have been earning, but she was mostly employed throughout the series, although we do see an episode where she does lose her job.
Yeah, we'll talk about Monica's job loss like in a bit more detail, because it is like, again, it's something that does get covered in various sitcoms with differing degrees of like sensitivity, I think.
Yeah.
Just a final thing on the apartment thing. So we see throughout the show that Monica and Ross's parents, Jack and Judy, show massive preference towards Ross. Like he's the golden child, he can do no wrong. Monica kind of, they could take or leave, which is awful. However, she must have been like Nana's favourite because she is the one who's got the apartment. And I do think that like in other circumstances, surely that could cause some contention between siblings. Definitely. If you've been given like or practically free, let's face it, apartment, and like the other one is having to make their own way. I really like Ross's apartment in the early series. He moves, doesn't he? But he has that one with the like big living space in the kitchen. I love that set. Whatever they use for that.
Yeah, it's true actually, and that I've never really thought of that, but like the fact that it's not an issue between the two of them that comes up at least is quite interesting, and I wonder like whether there is some kind of backstory to that and to why Monica is the one that got the rent-controlled apartment. Yeah, because it would, like we said, have such a huge impact on your future.
And maybe if the Gellers have always preferred Ross, like he's just been like, do you know what?
Yeah, you have it.
You have it. Let's level the playing field a bit. But so I mean, all roads lead back to 5 steaks and an eggplant. In this show, really. So one of Monica's like real key money storylines is that she loses her job. So what actually happens in that episode is that, you know, we have the confrontation at the dinner table, which we've talked about at length in the previous 2 episodes. The 3 who can afford it go to the concert without the other 3 because they won't accept the gift. And they are quite like stubborn about it. And then they all end up having this big argument. And I forgot how much they all argue with each other in the earlier seasons. But it's kind of cut through by this phone call between Monica and her boss. And she was not supposed to take the steaks from the meat vendor because they have like a corporate policy about accepting gifts, and she is immediately dismissed. So she's fired on that phone call, and that's kind of what like breaks the argument up, and they all kind of gather around her because obviously she's devastated and she's potentially then moving from like one tranche to the other.
I think that's what's so kind of stark about it as well. It really is like, and that's obviously where they wrote it, but you've seen Monica very much in this like, I can afford nice things situation to suddenly being like, I've got no job in one episode.
You know, you would really think of Monica, because she's so neurotic about everything, that she would have like a decent amount of savings. But when in the prom video episode, which surely like if I had to name one episode, that would be number one. It's just so good, so heartbreaking. It's where the whole lobster thing comes from. Like literally, you can't get like it's hard to find a Valentine's Day card without a lobster on it, and it's because of that episode.
That's so true.
Monica has been like really building herself up to ask her dad for some money to tide her over because she hasn't been able to find. I think there's a few episodes have passed and she hasn't found a job. And when she tells her dad that she's lost her job, or she tells her parents, and she's like, the way she tells them is like, I had to leave my job. And her mum's like, why? And then she's like, because they made me. Which is so funny.
It's a great spin on it.
Yeah, exactly. But she asks her dad, or she tells them, and her dad's like, well, that's no problem, because where does 10% of your paycheck go? And they both chant, like, Ross is like, in the bank. So he's obviously been doing it. And Monica's like, in the bank. So she obviously has not been doing it. And that is a feeling that I definitely know well. I do think it's really common, actually, for two siblings brought up in the same financial environment and told the same thing to, like, do different things.
Yeah.
But so she then, because she hasn't followed her dad's like financial advice, she feels unable to ask him for help. And I think that is very, very common. I think if your parents have told you to do one thing, you haven't done it, it's really hard then to be like, oh, help. And this is where Ross comes in and kind of shows his real generous side and is like, gives her the dinosaur check. And she says, wow, you're a cheaposaurus. It's just such good jokes, such like lighthearted jokes in these earlier episodes. Like not everything has to be Succession, you know? But yeah, so I think it kind of does show up that she has this like fragility, and like life in hospitality is quite fragile. My husband worked in hospitality for years, and it felt insecure all the time. Then we have the episode where she's got like $127 left, and she gambles on the stock market. That's the episode with the two bullies who won't let Ross and Chandler sit in the coffee shop. But she loses everything, and she then has to take the job at the diner with the like fake boobs.
I do actually think it's quite an interesting like portrayal of like the stock market in a way, because again, we've talked a lot about this and the fact that, you know, like there is a difference between investing and gambling, but what we see here is like the complete like extreme of like just investing with no strategy or clue,
like random,
and just off vibes. Because she literally like chooses like the ticker letters that she likes, like, and it just disappears. And so I do think it's quite a useful, I guess, point, because there's so much of the conversation about investing which is like, it's not gambling. And like obviously if you've got a strategy, you know what you're doing, you're investing in a well diversified way, that's one thing. But just picking a random stock because you like the sound of it and putting all your money into it, that is...
Or because a guy with a Rolex on TikTok's told you to.
Yeah, exactly. There is a clear difference. So I'm kind of glad that they put this in there as well, because I know this was, again, years and years ago, but I feel like this is also a much needed reminder in 2026.
Absolutely. And she does, you know, she then gets back in the game. She works her way up to head chef level. And, you know, again, we see her like very competent. I think a chef was a really interesting choice for her career, because we don't see that play out very much. Like usually women are usually like journalists or whatever.
You don't really see women in like very male dominated, like high intensity, like on your feet manual jobs in the way that being a head chef would be.
And she does experience quite a lot of like creepy behavior and sexism. There's like she's going for a job interview and the guy is like getting her to make a salad and he's like, is it dirty? She's like, don't worry, I'm going to wash it. He's like, don't, I like it dirty. He's so creepy, that guy. But yeah, no, we kind of do see her like come into her own. And then obviously in later seasons, and we talk about this more when we talk about Chandler because it's one of his major arcs. But she is then like the breadwinner and she's having to like kind of support, financially support her husband. But yeah, before we go, I want to say, rewatching this, I don't think I'd quite realise like what a joy Monica and Chandler are.
Yeah.
Because their relationship, there's no build up to it whatsoever. It comes completely out of nowhere. It's not like they're teasing it for ages and ages. They just sleep together in London and it just works like immediately. And the episode where he proposes to her never fails to make me cry. I love it. I love their relationship so much. The stuff in Tulsa where he quits his job basically because he doesn't want to be seduced by Selma Blair.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to like be apart from her. And I love that. I think they bounce so well off each other. There's no messing about really once they've got together.
Kind of the opposite to Ross and Rachel.
Exactly. Like I do think, you know, obviously I love an angsty love story, but I quite like a just straightforward one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, like we see her determination and her resilience in her career throughout the series as well, because as we talked about, she starts off, she does experience setbacks, but she kind of gets back up and goes again. And ultimately it does pay off. And whereas with Rachel, we see a lot of her, I guess, early days in fashion come through like networking and through contacts and through people, which is just as valid.
Skills in its own right. Yeah. But yeah, Monica's is like
graft. Yeah, properly. And I think like that, as much as I said that she was my worst friend, like I do admire that
it's like worst of a good bunch.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
exactly. So I do think there's a lot of like good lessons we can take from Monica as well.
100%. She's class. Okay, well, that's pretty much all we've got time for. We will be back next week with our next friend. And till then, if you miss us, you can find us on socials at Show Me the Money Official. You can subscribe to our Substack. We'll be in your inbox every Sunday. And also, please go give us a follow, give us a subscribe, drop us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.